Hi, this is Yosef Bhartia, and we are here at KubeCon and Cloud in Atlanta. And today we have with us once again Julian Fischer, CEO and founder of anynines. Julian, it's great to have you back on the show.
Great to see you again.
It's my pleasure. Let's start with the show itself. The layout is a bit different. What people are saying is that the way it has spread out, there's more room for interaction. Nobody's speaking on each other. Booths are getting traffic. You can attend to traffic. What has been your experience so far at this KubeCon? You have attended so many KubeCons in the past.
The frequency of people coming to our booth really pretty much depends on where you are in the exhibit hall. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But what I can definitely see is that the dynamic of the conversations have shifted. So a few years ago, talking about data service orchestration across Kubernetes clusters was not very familiar. People didn't really see the problem yet. That has changed quite a lot. And that also changes the dynamic of us, as a company running our sponsoring booth over there. So
now let's start with the Klutch. First of all, people already know about it, but just quick intro and what's new on the open source side, or what's new with Klutch?
Well, first of all, the application development becomes more of a topic in the Kubernetes ecosystem, like we've predicted. Where the past was more about lift and shift of VM workloads, now there's more traction to application developers using Kubernetes to actually run their web applications. And in that case, you have more of a competition with technologies such as Cloud Foundry. So that leads to the question, how do you expose data service automation to application developers on Kubernetes? And we've been thinking about this problem for quite a while, and Klutch is obviously our response to it. And the main assumption is you want to have local applications developer self-service, so that application developers can describe their entire application system within their local Kubernetes cluster. We give with Klutch the application developer the impression that databases were local, where they actually are not. Because in our experience, database operations, whether it is with VM or container-based automation, is kind of a tricky thing to do, and you want to keep it in a separate team. So if you separate the data service automation from the application deployments, then how do you allow that local on-demand self-service? So Klutch solves that problem by providing a plugin that you plug into your application developer cluster that gives you the abstractions for all the data services, like declare service instance, and a database will be created for you. If you do that, and you have a lot of Kubernetes clusters and a lot of different database backends that you integrate with Klutch, how would you get a central overview of who uses data services in which application clusters? And the answer to that is the Klutch control plane. So the Klutch control plane allows you to integrate any data service automation once and expose this automation across all your Kubernetes clusters for all your application developers, enabling that local self-service.
Can you talk about your open source Klutch, if I'm not wrong, last year? What kind of feedback, what kind of interest, what kind of traction you have seen for Klutch?
So first of all, what we do with our prospects in open source Klutch is walk through the abstractions and the major design assumptions. For example, do you agree that database automation should be run outside of the Kubernetes cluster? So even if somebody wants to adopt a Kubernetes operator, should that operator run in a Kubernetes application cluster? And the answer and the consensus for larger organizations is clearly no. For small environments and really mature developer teams, that might be different. But at scale, the consensus is you want to keep it separate. So we've been step by step confirming the design assumptions of Klutch, and so far got zero pushback on the core assumption. At the same time, adopting such a technology like Klutch is not a simple decision. It goes to the core on how to design the application delivery experience, and there are many more frameworks that do Kubernetes orchestration, like for example, those who allow you to do virtual clusters and build your own application developer experience with Kubernetes. And you have to figure out how these things come together. So decision making about Klutch is not as simple. What we see now is the first POCs where people put Klutch into their organizations and just make it a reality to their application developers.
When we look at open source can go only so far. It can solve problem of either teams who have all the capabilities or who wants to dip their toes in that. But commercialization is when it really becomes get into production, where companies have, they're saying a throat to choke. So talk a bit about the commercial journey of Klutch.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, what Klutch on its own is a container orchestration and integration framework. It solves the problem, given that you have some sort of data service automation, how you make this automation accessible to developers in a large amount of application clusters while having that central control plane. That's what Klutch open source solves. It provides that domain model, those abstractions, but it does not come with the actual automation. So you actually need integrations with Klutch to actually solve the data service challenge for your application developers. And that's what Anynines Hub is about. It extends Klutch with data service backends such as the anynines data services that do virtual machine provisioning versus AWS data service that do pod provisioning. And upcoming is Klutch for AWS, which does AWS services, including S3 and RDS, and more are upcoming.
And how does Anynines Hub kind of take care of a lot of pain that developers, teams face who are still navigating Cloud Foundry, Kubernetes as a bridge?
A lot of organizations using Cloud Foundry, they already have at least one toe in the Kubernetes waters, and they will see that there's a vivid dynamic about Kubernetes adoption. So in the long term, the question is, what is the dynamic of Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes going to be? We see a lot of good, well-committed clients, working with Cloud Foundry these days. But there's also this challenge on how to, keep the cost of maintaining both experiences low. So in the past, you would say, all right, in order to get a service into the Cloud Foundry marketplace, you need to write a service broker. But would you start writing service brokers in 2025? So in order to make sense of your Cloud Foundry environment, Klutch actually does the following. We've implemented a Klutch service broker that any service that has a Klutch integration can be also exposed in Cloud Foundry without having to write another service broker. So in that regard, we take care of the Cloud Foundry community, with Klutch being an Anynines Hub as an entire stack is the data service orchestration solution for both Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes.
While you're talking about Anynines Hub, just the way we try to explain what is Klutch, those who may not know what actually is Anynines Hub, so they can further. So if you can just talk about that, that will be great help.
Yeah, I mean, Anynines Hub is basically the umbrella. It contains Klutch. It also contains the Anynines data services, which are now, there used to be a VM workload that you have to install with a Bosch director, and they're going to be a Kubernetes workload. Well, they would still do VM on-demand provisioning, but you can run the entire hub, Anynines Hub control plane, then on Kubernetes as a Kubernetes workload. So it contains the AWS data services, the Anynines data services. It contains Klutch. It contains also components for Cloud Foundry, such as our CF Backstage, which is replacing Stratus UI for managing applications on Cloud Foundry. We are also shipping as a backstage for all our UI components. The Anynines data services dashboards will be re-implemented as backstage plugins, and Klutch is going to have backstage plugins as well. So Anynines Hub is basically the umbrella for all our data service orchestration products. And you get a license from us. You can basically use all the products that are within Anynines Hub.
Now, since you mentioned VM, it really it struck VMware, and after the Broadcom acquisition, a lot of folks are, because of license changing, because of pricing, a lot of folks are looking at VMware alternatives, and Kubernetes, of course, Red Hat. What kind of movement are you seeing in this space, and where do you see is room for anynines in that, where folks are looking at, because you have your toes dipped in Cloud Foundry and also Kubernetes?
I would say we are the alternative to Broadcom Tanzu these days. We have anynines Cloud Foundry, a well-proven stack that is, currently operating hundreds of thousands of application instances across the globe. People can take our distribution, set it up, and basically have their own Cloud Foundry that's more or less a drop-in replacement to commercial alternatives. For those who actually don't want to run it themselves, we have remote operations and operations support alternatives, and we are very experienced in making zero downtime migrations from one Cloud Foundry to another. So we've been doing this from one Cloud Foundry flavor to another. We've been doing migrations from one infrastructure to another. So we are very strong on running Cloud Foundry on OpenStack. We are strong on running Cloud Foundry on vSphere or on any major cloud provider.
Those who it may still, I don't know, who may not know about anynines, but who may not know about anynines, what kind of folks should look at you where they do feel the pain, they do feel the struggle, and they are looking for solutions, and you're like, you should come to anynines?
Well, basically, talk to us, and in a couple of days, you have a fully functioning Cloud Foundry up and running on your infrastructure, ready to migrate from any other Cloud Foundry you have. The tooling is there. We are capable of taking a snapshot of one Cloud Foundry and transferring all the assets to another Cloud Foundry with, as I said, nearly zero downtime for the applications. So anybody who has a Cloud Foundry, whether it's open source or a commercial flavor, we have a distribution that works, and it's been battle tested over more than the past decade.
This KubeCon, even the last KubeCon, one of the hottest topic was AI. Here, a lot of discussions. NVIDIA is making a lot of announcement. A lot of players are making announcement. The fact is that, as they say, there are only X amount of GPU in the world that you can buy. So what are you going to do? How to democratize it? As Cloud Foundry and that Kubernetes, do you also see anynines will play any role in the space where folks are embracing? Because now Cloud Foundry is also doing AI workloads. So where you see that, yes, anynines is fully ready or suitable for dealing with AI workloads as well?
Well, if you look at the core of what anynines does, is we look for sufficiently complex, distributed, open source projects, and then add and wrap it in automation to make it consumable by the enterprise. And if that's an AI tool chain, for example, a large language model, we have conducted researches on having a product called anynines model that gives you the tooling around on-demand provisioning LLMs. That could be a thing. It's if there are clients who want that, we're going to build it. By the way, other than that, I mean, you also have, in the context of AI, the demand for other databases like vector databases. So that could also be a thing.
I think you are the one through which I heard the data on Kubernetes DOK community is growing heavily. Talk a bit about, AI is all about data, inferencing and everything. Talk a bit about when we look at anynines data services, which is, one of your strength. And when developers are or DevOps teams are looking at self-service automation platform where anynine fits, irrespective of what kind of workload they're running, if they are dealing with data services, anynines has the building blocks ready for them.
So interestingly, when you look at the Klutch challenge, you have a lot of application developers, and the first thing you want to do is separate the application developer cluster from where the data service automation is run. If you make that separation, for the application developer using Klutch, there is no difference in using Amazon RDS versus anynines Postgres versus AWS Postgres that runs as a Kubernetes operator, because it will always feel like a local operator. So the point is, running data services on Kubernetes can be done. There are some complexities, as you need to manage the Kubernetes cluster as well as the operator on top of it. You need to scale the Kubernetes cluster along with the growing or shrinking demand of the Kubernetes operators provisioning more or less data service instances. But I think, it's perfectly fine to do that. Our anynines data services hooking right into the API of an infrastructure, they scale to the limit of infrastructure. You don't have to deal with that. So there are pros and cons of having VMs versus containers. We personally believe that Kubernetes operators are perfectly fine to run data services at scale that are on-demand provisioning. However, we don't see the tremendous pressure to put the data service automation on Kubernetes, which I would have predicted a few years ago, did not really happen. So if we build new data service today, we still look into BOSH-based data services versus Kubernetes as a foundation. And the decision on which technology to pick is, first of all, driven by the preference of the clients. And second, the availability of good tools out there that help to build that automation faster. So, for example, if there's a good operator out there that we could use to put our features on top, then we'll go with Kubernetes. But we also have clients asking, well, would you give us a BOSH-based service? Because we prefer VMs.
We are hearing a lot about platform engineering, of course, SREs. Now, if you look at anynines and if you look at Klutch, of course, anynines hub is also there. What role do you think it can play in kind of shaping the future of platform engineering, developer experience, whether it's hybrid, whether it's multi-cloud, whether it's AI workload, irrespective of where the world is heading, where you see the role that you folks are playing in this ecosystem?
Well, as a long-running Cloud Foundry enthusiast, we have to look into what was good in Cloud Foundry and what didn't work. So I think Kubernetes is more versatile. You can deploy stateful workloads into a Kubernetes cluster. But the drawback is you have to have a lot of Kubernetes clusters, as it's not exactly multi-tenant capable. So you have to deal with the complexities of having a lot of Kubernetes clusters. The application delivery tooling for deploying web apps to Kubernetes is growing at the moment. As this is growing, the data service orchestration challenge that we've had in Cloud Foundry 2 reemerges. You need to solve that. And Anynines Hub is addressing this problem, with Klutch being the integration framework and Anynines Hub also offering the plugins and the automation backend. So if you plan an application developer experience targeting many clients, the data service challenge solution is non-trivial. And Anynines Hub, in our best opinion, is the solution to that problem. And that is true even if you are, let's say, in an AWS all-in strategy and you want to consume your data services from AWS or from Azure or GCP, because you still have the orchestration problem. In other words, how can application developers declare their entire application system, including databases, from their Kubernetes cluster without ever having to leave it? We solved that problem.
Did you folks make any announcement here at KubeCon?
Well, yeah. We also have a new product for customers who are looking into replacing their Stratus UI for managing Cloud Foundry applications. So the issue with Stratus UI and, in the context of managing Cloud Foundry apps is that this tool has a legacy code base. It's based on the Cloud Controller version 2 API of Cloud Foundry, which has been deprecated. The Cloud Controller v3 API is the API you should use, which means that you have to go through a major refactoring of Stratus UI. So internally, we've tested the assumption on, hey, would it be much more efficient to just rewrite that thing from scratch based on Backstage? And we did, and it turned out to be the right assumption. So CF AppStage is Stratus UI or Tanzu Apps Manager replacement that is built on the Cloud Controller v3 API. Is blazingly fast, and it's making good progress. And it's also available under the Anynines Data Service license. So if you have license credits with us, you can use that in your Cloud Foundry right away.
whether we look at anynines Hub, all the commercial offerings, how folks can get access to them?
Well, first of all, it's reaching out to us. We'll talk about the particular demand and carve out the pieces that a client needs. We do free POCs, which means we help them to set up Klutch, select the backends they could use, and help them to get it up and running. All these anynines Hub products are under the credit license, which means depending on which product you're using and how many instances of it, amount of credits is calculated, and you can basically purchase more credits the more product you use. And with that credits license, there's basically also an automatic discount. You use more credits, credits get cheaper.
Julian, once again, thank you so much for joining me today and walk us through Anynines journey and the technologies that you're building, solutions that are building both open source and commercial to help folks navigate through this Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry labyrinth. Thanks for your great insights. And as usual, I look forward to chat with you again. Thank you.
It's great seeing you again here. Hopefully next event, we are going to meet each other again. It's always a pleasure talking to you. So thank you very much.